All right, hello and welcome into another episode of podcast on D Shot. Today we got the former Milwaukee Journal Sentinel Bucks beat writer Matt Velazquez. Matt, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, no, glad to be here.
So I'm gonna start with this since obviously you stepped down from being the beat writer for the Bucks, and now you're in Indiana. Um, how's that transition been, and what are you doing these days?
Oh no, things have been great. Obviously I wrote in my thing for the Journal Sentinel my little farewell column that my wife got into medical school, and so she's doing that, doing great. I'm kind of living the dad life over here, hanging out with the kids a lot, and yeah, it's been nice to kind of transition to a little bit more of a slower pace of life, and I've got a couple irons in the fire and interested in maybe what I can do next, career wise, but for the most part, I'm really happy just kind of hanging out, hanging with the kids, and being supportive and all that.
Obviously we're in this pandemic, but obviously being in Indiana, obviously how much basketball are you gonna get to once we're out of this thing?
I mean, I think once we're out of this thing, I think I'll have plenty of opportunities. You look at just obviously the Pacers, and Butler is like 3 miles down the road from me. And there's obviously plenty of other schools and opportunities to see some basketball and all kinds of sports. I mean, Indianapolis is a great downtown. I'm really hoping to actually start to get to experience it and enjoy it once things start opening up, since it's a great, like, walkable, fun place to be.
You could probably even get exposed to I think Division 3 does their Final Four over there now.
I believe so,
I
and I know
think.
that the a lot of the NCAA swimming is at the natatorium at IUPUI. I mean, in terms of a sports town, I mean, I went to grad school here, so at least I have a taste of what it's all about. And there is no shortage of sports and different activities that you can do here. That's for sure.
Obviously you were just refresh me. How long were you at the Journal Sentinel, and then how long for the Bucks role?
Yeah, so I got to the Journal Sentinel in July of 2013. And pretty much started covering the Bucks to some extent, almost immediately. Once that season started in 2013, Charles Gardner was on the beat, but my boss just said, "Hey, the Bradley Center's across the street. Charles definitely needs help sometimes. Just go there whenever you can." And so, every so often they'd schedule me for shifts just to go and help out at Bucks home games and write sidebars and transcribe quotes and stuff for Charles. And um, I did that for, I guess, 4 seasons. Um, Let me think. I guess it was 4 seasons. Yeah, because then I covered Marquette for 3 years, and even while covering Marquette, I would still go to Bucks games and help out when Marquette wasn't playing. I mean, they'd only play about 2 games a week, so I had time to get out to Bucks games, especially when the Marquette season ended. I would join Charles for the final kick, and maybe the playoffs if they're in the playoffs. And then when Charles retired, I took over. I believe it was 2017. So I covered the Bucks for 3 seasons as the main beat writer from 2017 to the end of last season, 2020.
Obviously we're talking about Charles Gardner, and obviously he was on the Bucks beat for a long time. What did you learn most from him, and I guess kind of what was it like kind of filling his shoes after he retired?
Yeah, no, I learned a lot from Charles. I think there's just a lot of things you pick up by watching somebody, like just the way they treat people and they handle themselves. And he always handles himself, in the classiest of ways, and he treated everyone, just great, super friendly. I also learned that just how much of a grind it is and how much you need to, like, kind of keep working. And sometimes you have to ask the same questions kind of over and over again, about injuries and about player availability and just kind of like the boring stuff. But you got to do it, and you have to be ready. A lot of times when you're the local beat writer, like, people are going to look to you first to ask questions. And so you need to, make sure you go into every press conference and media availability with an idea of what you want to ask, because you're going to be put on the spot. Um, and just, you got to keep showing up, got to keep working hard. And so, yeah, he was a great friend to me when we were working together, still a great friend to me now. And it's been great. He was really supportive when I jumped in and took his spot. Gave me all kinds of, connections and information, and, would text and call me every so often just to be like, okay, here, how you doing? How are things going? And we would catch up on stuff. So yeah, no, it was a great working relationship. I mean, I feel like I had a great working relationship with everyone at the Journal Sentinel, but Charles was someone I worked with really closely for a long time, and it was great to be able to know him that way.
Obviously with covering the Bucks, what's your kind of like favorite story from covering them or any I know with interviewing Gary D'Amato talked about one time where he was interviewing Reggie Jackson, and Reggie Jackson was like the eating chicken and spitting chicken in his face while he's interviewing him. Do you got any like really interesting stories like that, or who is your favorite like non-Bucks athlete to interview?
I mean, I'd have to think about it. I know there was one time when I first got to the Journal Sentinel, Giannis was a rookie, um, and it was pretty early on in the season, and we were just kind of me and a few other people were hanging out in the locker room before the game, and Giannis like called us over, and he's like, "Hey guys, look at this," and like he pointed inside his locker. He goes, "Louis Vuitton shoes, two pairs," and he was so excited. I'm like, "Oh, Giannis, like where'd they come from? Like, why do you have those?" He's, "Oh, Larry Sanders, he's best teammate. Oh, he's so good. He's taking care of me." And we go over to talk to Larry Sanders, who at that point I think he had been suspended or he had been injured, something that happened. He wasn't around. I had never seen him or talked to him in my life. I had just gotten there like pretty recently. Um, and we were like, "Hey, Larry, like Giannis was talking about you gave him some shoes." Like he's like, "Hey, you guys know I don't talk before the game." And I was like, "I don't know you at all. Like, I have no idea." But then he was like, "Yeah, just being a good teammate." And then he kind of just dropped it from there. But, that was kind of fun. Um, I remember there was a day in Miami just talking about like old video games with Brooke Lopez. That was a good time. That was the same day I think that Captain Marvel had just come out, and I was wearing like an Avengers shirt, and Giannis like grabbed me by the shirt, and he's like, "You're not a true fan. You're not a true fan. I'm a true fan. You're not a real fan." I'm like, "Well, Giannis, I just saw Captain Marvel. Have you seen that?" And he was like, "No," and I was like, "Well, who's the real fan now?" So just kind of little things like that, and then there were plenty of stories that I enjoyed writing. I appreciated Chris Middleton giving me the opportunity to write about his daughter being born and why he had to leave a playoff game early to go back home to be there in time for that, and um, just write different things about Giannis over the years. In terms of opposing players, I'm trying to think. It's just so hard because I spend so much of my time in the Bucks locker room. Like you can't be in both locker rooms at once. Um, there's not necessarily anybody who like stood out a ton to me in terms of like guys who like I was like, "Oh yeah, I love when this guy comes to town." I just know that in terms of former Bucks, I mean, Jared Dudley was always a great talker. He talked to you anytime, anywhere. He was just super happy to be accommodating. Um, I remember Draymond Green. There was at least one time, if not more, where I talked to him, and it was, he's just open. And you like, as a reporter, you like guys who are just open and will just talk and kind of, you know, understand the job that you have to do, and are willing to kind of just be real with you. And so I think those are the situations that kind of jump to mind at least.
I gotta bring up the obvious one because obviously maybe like a month ago, Giannis is in a press conference and he was asking about you, and he kind of right in the press conference he found out that you got a new job and whatnot. What was your kind of reaction to that moment?
I mean, I was surprised. I mean, I was gone for like 3.5 months at that point. Like I know with Zoom you can't see everybody, but he didn't really ask about me for that long. I assume someone from the Bucks PR staff had probably told him. I mean, I wrote the whole article about like where I was going and why. But granted, like at the start of December when I wrote that, he was still considering the Supermax. He had things going on in his life. He probably wasn't paying very much attention to the media, because a lot of things about him at that time were, is he staying? Is he going? What should he do? Whatever. So
And
I get it.
he was like unfollowing everybody on like
Yeah.
Instagram and all that.
hmm Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really hold it against him, but 3 months, like 3.5 months, if you're to ask, like, I wish he thought we were closer than that. It's like, well, to be honest, I thought we were closer than that you would ask about me sooner. But we'll see. I'm hoping to get to the game when the Bucks play the Pacers here in May. and we'll see if we can have some kind of reunion.
Maybe spot him some lemon pepper chicken wings.
Yeah, I think he'd be all about that. Though after the game,
Yeah.
because before the game, he's locked in, he's laser focused.
I guess just kind of the obviously how is it kind of covering them in the bubble last summer?
It was rough. It was so bad. I mean, because I wasn't in the bubble. I was at home. I was here in Indianapolis. I was sitting right here at this table, covering them. And hold on, I got my dog's barking. Hold on, you can just edit this, right?
Yeah.
All right, hold on. Let me go handle the dog real quick.
Okay, let me like pause it. And it is they probably say in sports, video games, and whatnot. And we're back.
Yeah. So I don't know where you want me to start from.
Yeah, we were talking about the bubble.
Yeah, so I mean the bubble was rough. I was covering it like from home. I was here in Indianapolis, like, sitting at the table for most of it. And you're just trying to figure out how to write something compelling off of only having Zoom interviews where like literally like any reporter can get in on those interviews. So like the minute Giannis or Chris Middleton or Bud or anybody says anything, you know, there's somebody from some other outlet that's like immediately tweeting it out or like writing out the transcript and just sending it out, pretty quick with no context. And that might be a national outlet, another local outlet. Meanwhile, I need to like, write a story and like provide the context and like the background and like, I might ask a good question that like I would have wanted to maybe ask separately if I were in person, but because I'm on Zoom, I got to ask it in front of everyone, and suddenly like whatever that story is or that answer is, that can immediately get picked up, and I don't have anything unique. So that was just a struggle. I think for a lot of people who are regular beat writers, where we usually get better access because we're there, we're in person. The national media, they don't always send people, ESPN or CBS or any of the national, the Ringer or the Athletic, like they don't necessarily always send their national people to every game. And so they don't always necessarily get those things. They get them off of us. Like we put the stories out and then suddenly gets aggregated and picked up, and at least we get some credit for that. But when anybody can just hop on a Zoom, who has the link, then suddenly you're getting more competition and everyone's kind of fighting over the same stuff. And, it's just difficult to think like, okay, how do I write a different story than everyone else is writing, even though we all have the same information, we all have the same access. So that was challenging. And then obviously, the Bucks had their protest where they sat out that game. And like I'm learning everything as everyone else is. Like I don't have any access. Like no one had access at that point. They were just in their locker room, and you're trying to figure out what in the world happened and what the reasons are and who said what, who did, and like you're kind of just you know, struggling along from your kitchen table in Indianapolis while everything's going on in Orlando, and it's suddenly this worldwide thing. And like you're just kind of thrust into this, major story that you're trying to cover off of Zoom with like limited access. And it's, it was an interesting experience, but it was definitely difficult.
I kind of thought it was interesting. Obviously, you started at the Journal Sentinel in 2013. So it's kind of interesting to hear that, considering I guess you haven't really had when you covered the Bucks, didn't really have any like down seasons. Because the Bucks were kind of god awful for how many years?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was there for that first year, when they were 15 and 67. I wasn't there all the time, but once I, took over the beat, I mean, those were three of some of the best years that, to cover the Bucks. I mean, it was the first year I covered them was the year where they fired Jason Kidd partway through the year, and then it was Joe Prunty for the other half, and they had that series with the Boston Celtics in the playoffs that was a pretty compelling series, even though they didn't win. And then right after that, I mean that was the year they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. So it was it was definitely a good time to be there. Obviously covering Giannis, during his MVP seasons is something special. Adapting to a kind of a new culture, new arena, new coaching staff, new ownership, like kind of just everything kind of turned over. And I was very fortunate to be there at the time when all that was happening and getting to kind of experience all of that Bucks history.
I guess with the new arena, like what's your favorite part about Fiserv?
I mean, everything about it is really nice. It was fun in the playoffs. Usually teams feed the media before games, and in the playoffs, a lot of teams switch to instead of providing meals in the media room, they just give you a voucher to go eat on the concourses. And so getting to try all the food during the playoffs on the concourses was really good. I mean, I think they did a really good job of incorporating a lot of local foods and different like Wisconsin specific, Milwaukee specific options into the concession stands and vending opportunities. So like just going around and like getting to eat different things was great. I think there are really like no bad seats there except for where they put the media, which is in like the top. It's like it's in a corner and like it's kind of like in a room. It's pretty far away. But that's kind of the norm now. I mean, there are only a few, there's only maybe like a third of the arenas where you're like, and probably less than that, where you're like courtside or like in the first few rows. Like those are special. Like you like going to places like that. But most of
Kind of makes you jealous of guys like Ted Davis and Jim Paschke who are like right on the floor
yeah, yeah.
calling the game.
I mean, Ted is usually somewhere higher up because like radio needs a different view or gets a different view.
Okay.
But I've sat in Jim's seat before, because every so often there'd be national games where there's no local TV, and the Bucks would put me and somebody else in Jim and Marcus's seats since they weren't there, and that's fun. Like being able to sit in those spots, and you're right next to the bench. You get to hear a lot of different things and see a lot of different things. I appreciate that. Sometimes you recognize like, okay, like Jim and Marcus, like, they have to do a lot of kind of maneuvering in their seats to like try and look around a coach or look around a ref. And sometimes you gotta like, I mean, I guess they'll have to call things blind, because
Or you
people
can
are in their
kind of
way.
they can kind of reference the monitor too.
Yeah, and so being able to do that in like real time, like kudos to them because that's gotta be difficult. I know I spent many games, when I was courtside, like just kind of like looking around a coach and looking around a ref, and sometimes you don't see things or because you're so low, you can't tell if a guy's foot was on the line, if he's shooting a three or whatever. So you have to kind of just do your best to try and figure it out with context clues. But yeah, it's Fiserv is great. I really think they did a really good job with that. There's just so many good seats, so many good vantage points. And having gone to all the other NBA arenas, I think it stacks up, really, really well with any of them.
I still got to get over there because the last Bucks game I actually went to was Bucks Lakers. Um, Maybe it was 2015 or something, and I think OJ Mayo hit some sort of big three. Kobe was hurt during that game, but obviously PJ Tucker just got traded to the Bucks yesterday. What's your kind of thoughts on the Bucks this year? Obviously there was kind of a point during the season where maybe people were calling for Bud's job. Now the Bucks kind of are on a little bit of a hot stretch, kind of won like 6 out of 7 before the All-Star break. What's been your kind of take on them this season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I haven't paid as much attention to the Bucks as I have in the past, but just obviously, I've kept up with them. And I'm not surprised people are calling for Bud's head. I mean, that's just what fans do. I never had the expectation that Bud would be going anywhere. I mean, once they started the season with him, I mean, maybe after the Heat series in the playoffs, they might have reconsidered, but he still had 2 years left on his contract. I didn't think they were going to eat that. Um, plus it's just so hard to judge uh, too much off of going to the bubble. It's just a crazy year. Um, so bringing in Drew Holiday, I thought was a great move. The rest of the free agent moves, I was like, okay, like, they seemingly make sense. Like we'll see. Obviously, the Bogdanovich thing was a fiasco. I was still covering them for that. That was wild. But I think that there was going to be some shakiness. I wasn't surprised that coming off the bubble, like they hadn't gelled, they hadn't kind of put things together, and they had made a point to say, hey, like we've been the one seed in the East 2 years in a row. Like we know the regular season doesn't really matter. We need to do some different stuff and handle it differently. And so if they're going to be switching more on defense and trying out different things, like you're just going to lose more. Like you're not going to be kind of this like well-oiled machine. And that's not too much of a surprise. I mean, this whole season, like the NBA, like teams aren't, just racking up wins left and right. Like it's kind of been a slog. Like there are a lot of teams, especially in the East, they're just like hovering around 500. And the Bucks have recently been able to distance themselves. I think the PJ Tucker trade is only a good thing for them. I mean, I haven't totally parsed out like the draft picks and everything, but I think that when you can get a player of PJ Tucker's quality and experience, and just to have that different option where you can go small, and he is as stout and as strong of a small ball center as anybody you're going to find, despite being undersized. That's hugely valuable. And DJ Augustine, like he didn't really he didn't really pan out. It didn't really work. They'd paid him this, pretty big contract, and I guess the positive for the Bucks is that that big contract was able to match up with salary wise and get them PJ Tucker. And I'm interested to see, what they do with their last two roster spots, because now based off of this trade and sending Torrey Craig to Phoenix, they can be active on the buyout market. And that, as far as I've read and I've heard, they will have enough money for two buyout guys. And so who can you get? Who can you, lure over to Milwaukee and saying, hey, we've got, Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton and Giannis, like and Brooke Lopez and Dante DiVincenzo. We have this like solid, core. And now we have PJ Tucker. So, if you're the Bucks trying to convince somebody, say, hey, we have a championship window. We can do this. We just need, a few extra pieces, and maybe you can get somebody. Obviously their last couple guys who they've gotten on the buyout market. I mean, Pau Gasol didn't really work out because of injuries. Marvin Williams, I mean, he played a decent amount last year, and he, was a pretty decent signing for them. Not a huge game changer, but definitely somebody who, when you look at the buyout market, is a quality addition. So we'll see who's available this year and who they can bring in and how much of an effect they can have.
Um, Trying to think of I guess who do you think is the biggest threat to the Bucks in the East right now? Obviously the Nets got James Harden earlier in the season. Just kind of who do you think is the biggest threat?
I mean, I think you'd have to say the Nets, right? I mean, when you look at, KD, Kyrie, James Harden, now they bring in Blake Griffin as a buyout guy. Um, those are four really good players. I don't care how old they are. I don't care, what the situation is. If you're trotting out those four guys, at crunch time with whoever else, you're going to be in pretty good hands. So I think that, the Nets are the team to beat as of right now. Obviously, Philly is up there. Big game the last night between the Bucks and the Sixers. Obviously, with no Joel Embiid. But I think that if you're the Bucks, you want to try and avoid the Nets for as long as possible. If the Nets end up being the one seed, like great, then being the two isn't so bad. You'll have to go through Philly in the second round probably. But I think that you can kind of live with that. What you don't want is you don't want to be facing the Nets in the second round. I think you want to just kind of keep kicking that can down the road for as long as you can, because they're a really good team and should be a really tough challenge come playoff time.
I guess what's your favorite like either NBA or just basketball moment that you've ever witnessed in person?
Oh, in person. Ooh. I have to think about that. I mean, there were a bunch of fun games covering the Bucks. Yeah, I have a spreadsheet of like all the games I've ever been to like in my life. Um, and it's pretty extensive at this point. Um, but I have to say that I did enjoy being covering Marquette when they beat Villanova and everybody stormed the court. I think that was kind of a unique experience to be able to be there for that and to see that. Covering Giannis and Kobe and Kobe's last game in Milwaukee at the Bradley Center, I thought was special, and being there, after the game to see like Giannis like and Jason Kidd go into the Lakers locker room to like meet Kobe and talk to him, and I just thought that was such a super cool day, and like everybody who was there, was like, you know, on the edge of their seat anytime Kobe did anything. It was just kind of a special feeling. Like even when he missed, like Bucks fans be like, oh, because like they just wanted to see Kobe like score. Like it's just like fun. So that definitely stands out. Um, yeah, and obviously there were all those Bucks playoff games. The just their whole run in to the Eastern Conference Finals. Wins, losses. Even just being in Toronto for Toronto, like advancing to the NBA Finals. I mean, that's just like super memorable for me just to see those games and just the high intensity and fun that
Getting annoyed by Drake.
yeah, I mean, I wasn't as annoyed by him as most people are. Um, but it's just kind of funny that like, you're walking down the hallway and there's like Gucci Mane and there's like and there's Drake and you're like, "Oh, like this is big. Like this is important. Like things are happening." Like you see like Eastern Conference Finals, like all the big media people come out and it's all the celebrities come out and you're like, "Okay, like this this doesn't feel like the 2013 Milwaukee Bucks that I started covering, way back when there was like nobody at the Bradley Center for games. Like this is a whole different world, and kind of just being along for that ride was like, just really super cool.
I'm gonna give you mine because I like bragging about this. The school I went to for college is obviously in a Division III athletic powerhouse in UW Whitewater. One of the years that I was in school, we did the trifecta: won football, basketball, and baseball. I went to the men's basketball Final Four that year, um, where we played Williams. You probably know where I'm going with this.
Hmm.
Cordell Young, who went to my rival high school, um, had the game winning shot, but the moment before that is Duncan Robinson missing a shot that got tipped in by Michael Mayer, and then Q goes coast to coast to win us a national title. Now it's kind of cool to brag about that because look where Duncan Robinson ended up right after that.
Right.
So
Yeah, and actually, I forgot one. I was looking through my spreadsheet here. I was here in Indianapolis at the Final Four when the Badgers went to the Final Four. I That was my first year covering Marquette, and they sent me as like the second guy to help cover the Badgers. So I was at their whole run from the Sweet 16 on. So I was at those games, and that when they beat Kentucky at Lucas Oil Stadium, previously unbeaten Kentucky in the national semifinal. I think that game was just crazy. And initially, I was sitting like way deep in one of the end zones for like, the first game. I think that was Duke Michigan State. And that game was terrible. But I'm sitting like super far away. I'm like, man, I don't know how I'm gonna like run a live blog during the Badger game from this vantage point. Like you could barely see anything. It looks so small. And then somebody, I think it was the Marquette SID, who came over and was like, "Hey, do you want to go sit somewhere else? There's an open spot." Because it was where like some of the coaches, I think the Wisconsin coaches, were sitting to kind of scout, for the previous game. He said, "Oh, do you want to go down there? You can the spot's open. I can get you into it." And I said, "Okay." So I'm sitting in the second row at the Final Four, um, like basically center court. And it was just awesome to be there, like, just 80,000 whatever people crammed into Lucas Oil, and that just a crazy game. And then I was in the same spot for the national championship game, and being right there for all the action and one of the biggest sporting events of the year, was really super cool.
um one of the last things, I don't know how it'll work, but I was gonna say what's been the biggest thing that you've binge watched or favorite basketball movie that in terms of basically that you binge watched during the pandemic, and then like what's just your favorite basketball movie overall?
Oh, okay. During the pandemic, what did we watch? We watched a lot of things. It's been a long pandemic. We watched Tiger King and Queen's Gambit, and my wife had never watched Scrubs, and obviously now she's going into the medical field. And I had watched all of Scrubs back in the day, so I was like, "Oh, we should rewatch Scrubs, or I'll rewatch it. You watch it for the first time." So we're working on that, and we also just got into Schitt's Creek because the episodes are shorter and no commercials, and so she doesn't have a lot of time when she's not studying, but every so often when she needs to decompress, we'll jump into one of those. In terms of basketball movies, I'd have to think about it. I mean, I haven't
It's gonna be
actually.
interesting to see how this new Space Jam movie is gonna
Yeah,
be, but like I find it really disappointing that Giannis isn't gonna be in that.
yeah. No, I was gonna say I have to think about it pretty hard, and then I realized no, I don't have to think about it. Like Space Jam, like Space Jam was like 100% like my thing when I was a kid, and it still holds up. I think I watched it like a couple years ago with my kids, and it still works. So yeah, it's kind of a bummer that I guess Giannis won't be in it. I'm not surprised that he's not in it. But hey, there's always Space Jam 3, right?
Mm. I always plug this one because there's a neat little Division 3 movie that has to do with, I don't know if you know about the story about Corey Wiseman when he was at he was a 1,000 point scorer in high school and played college ball at Gettysburg and had like a stroke his like freshman or sophomore year, and they made a movie about how he had like his only point in college. That one's a good movie.
No, no, I hadn't heard about that one. That was pretty cool. That sounds good. Sounds good though.
Yeah. I guess we could end it on, I don't know if you have time to do like a name five bucks.
Yeah, but yeah. Who do I got to name? Like anybody or?
Do you want to just go since you covered 20 and since you covered them in 2013?
Sure.
Okay.
Who,
Like so typically how I do this is like you name five, then they're off the board, and then I name five, and then we just go from there.
oh, okay. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Where do I want to start? I'm going to start with some obscure ones. Let's go. Uh, Jeff Adrian, Nate Walters, Miroslav Raduljica, Ramon Sessions, and Grievous Vasquez.
Okay, I gotta think here. Middleton, Giannis, Bledsoe, Brooke Lopez. I try to think of it. OJ Mayo.
Okay. I'll go uh, Jabari Parker, Brandon Knight. Um, then let's go to Greg Monroe, John Henson, and DJ Wilson.
All right, Carlos Delfino. Um, was he still? I'm probably going back.
I know he came back and then he got immediately hurt.
Yeah.
And so he was around.
Uh, yeah, Malcolm Brogdon. Trying to think of who was Pau Gasol. We talked about him. Um, it's hard to think about without looking. Um, oh, what's it? Thon Maker?
Mhm.
Am I at four?
I think you're at four.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, who would be good? Uh, we said Larry Sanders.
Oh yeah, we did talk about him earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, then let's go. I think we did. You say Luke Ridnour?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
I don't know how far. I don't know how far we're going back.
I'm pretty sure he came back another time, like while I was there, since 2013. So we'll do Luke Ridnour, Johnny O'Brien, Jared Dudley, who we mentioned earlier in the podcast, Zaza,
Okay.
and Miles Plumley.
Jared Bayless.
Oh yeah,
Because there's that one play where Derrick Rose suckered in.
yep.
Brandon Jennings. So that's two. Um, I'd go way back, Francisco Elson. Is it all right to go further than 2013? Because I'm
I
kind
mean, I guess so.
of okay. John Salmons, Drew Gooden, said Michael Redd, Ursan Ilyasova.
Oh, I was gonna mention Ursan the next time it came back to me. How can you not mention Ursan?
Yeah.
Um, I guess I could do Tyler Zeller, Marshall Plumlee, MCW. Let's see, who do we want to go with next? Um, uh, TJ Augustine and Dante DiVincenzo.
Might as well just go a bunch of bust. Joe Alexander, Yi Jin Lian, TJ Ford, Desmond Mason, who wasn't really a bust. Um, and then the other dude that was part of the worst trade in Bucks history, Gary Payton.
Okay, okay. So we'll go um, Tyler Ennis. Speaking of busts, Rashad Vaughn. Um, Marvin Williams, who we mentioned in this podcast. Pat Connaughton and Robin Lopez.
Okay. Trying to think of where I want to go. Otherwise, I'm blinking on stuff. Tony Kukoc, Glenn Robinson, Sam Cassell, Irvin Johnson, and let's go current Bucks assistant Darvin Ham.
Okay. Um, Steve Novak, Damian Inglis, Delhi, um, trying to think of guys who were from a few years ago. Um, Damian Inglis, Delhi. Um, let's see. Um, oh, Gary Payton Jr. Uh, he caused me some anguish in my years on the beat only because Jason Kidd decided he wanted to start him for a little while, even though he was a two-way player, and that was an issue. Did you say Malcolm Brogdon earlier?
Yeah, I
I,
did.
I
Yeah.
think I think you did. Um, okay, then um, Spencer Hawes.
Okay.
He
Ke-
random trade.
okay. Keon Dooling. Um, Lindsey Hunter.
hmm
Uh, who else would be good? Brevin Knight. Did we say Brevin Knight?
I don't think so. I don't remember that.
Okay, that's going way back. Earl Boykins. Um, we'll go to the trick shot dude. John Brockman.
Okay.
I don't remember that video where he like did trick shots from like at the Bradley Center way back.
hmm Yeah. Oh, my turn now.
Yeah.
Okay. Gosh, I'm just trying to go through like the Rolodex. Oh, I was just tweeting about this guy this week. Tony Snell.
Okay.
Tony Snell. Um, Jason Terry. He was a good guy to talk to in the locker room. He just would talk and talk and talk. Um, Mirza Teletovic. Um, let's see. Um, oh, Sterling Brown and Christian Wood because they're on the Rockets now.
Okay. Keith Van Horn, Tim Thomas, um, a dude that got in trouble with the law a bunch of times, Jason Caffey, um, former UConn coach Kevin Ollie.
Oh yeah, former
Um,
UConn great, as I would say. I
and
grew up a UConn guy, so
trying to think of phone. Uh, who else would be? All right, I'm probably just gonna call it.
yeah, I think now's the time. I was struggling. I'm sure there's some obvious ones I forgot. Like I just my dog was barking and I was like, "Oh yeah, George Hill."
All right. Okay. Okay, Matt. Anything else you kind of want to add or anything?
No, no, I just appreciate you having me. It's I still keep up with things happening in Wisconsin even though I'm not there anymore. So I appreciate anybody who's followed me over the years and is following me now. Yeah, it's just great to talk.
Nice to actually kind of meet you for a change.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode of podcast on D Shot, and go Bucks.